Welcome back to another episode of Freeform AI. My name is Michael Burke, and I do data engineering and machine learning at Databricks. I'm joined by my co-host. His name is
Ben Wilson. I do UI-based document and text uploaders at Databricks.
Today we're speaking with Dr. Peter Solomon. He has a PhD in physics from Columbia, and since then has contributed to hundreds of academic papers and has been awarded 20 patents, which is a lot of patents. During his academic and private career, he focused heavily on fuel research in partnership with the DOE, DoD, and EPA. And more recently, he's been writing some books. One of them is 100 Years to Extinction, which is meant to be a wake-up call to young people about the dangers to human civilization from modern technologies. So, Peter, before we get into doomsdaying, prior to this book, you wrote an educational book for kids. Which audience do you like more, kids or PhD physicists?
I think I like kids more. I got 12 grandkids, and I love them, and it's fun to interact with them. So when I wrote the book for kids, my feeling was that there are so many wonderful science stories, and yet we turn kids off with the formalism. And so the idea was to write a story, a fictional story of young kids discovering science, and embed all of the wonderful stories within the fictional story, the wonderful nonfiction science. So one of the books was called The Stardust Mystery. And the mystery was, and this is true, you are made of stardust. There was once in the body of Albert Einstein and the last T-Rex. So present a kid with that kind of a statement, tell them it's true, it's real science, and I think you can probably get the interest of even the non-science nerds.
Yeah, the reality is very fascinating. I have struggled through school for my early life, and that's my exact complaint is the formalism makes everything not that interesting. Reality is actually really freaking cool.
It's fantastic. So tell the stories.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ben, you have a kid or three. I'm curious how you...
Or four.
I'm curious how you focus on educating them so that they become lifelong learners instead of just A+ students.
I mean, I'm very much in Dr. Solomon's court with you have to ignite wonder. And it's not just with kids. Like Michael, you know,
Everybody.
I do mentoring at Databricks. I try to ignite wonder in adults. And that's how you get somebody who wants to actually learn the why, not just the how and the what. And once you unlock that in somebody, they self-learn, provided that they have a good, safe place that they can go and bounce ideas off of. I'm curious, Dr. Solomon, particularly coming from a background of physics. Did you find that as you moved further and further through academia and into your career working in applied sciences, did you see a lot of people who lost the wonder and focused more on pursuit of academic rigor or things that just weren't about the exploration of the unknown?
I certainly saw some disappearance of that wonder, but the first company that I started, Advanced Fuel Research, we gathered together a group of people who were interested in science, and it was like a family. And that was started in 1980. It is on its last legs, I will have to say. But this week, one of the first employees of that company, he's been putting parties together every year, and he gathers together all of the employees that were in the company and have since left and started their own companies. And that family gets together again and reminisces. And I think we all enjoy each other, and we all enjoy what we did in terms of investigating science and technology and figuring out how things worked. It really was just a fantastic career. Can't imagine having done it any better.
Did you ever lose any of the wonder?
I don't think so. I mean, I've lost some things. I used to love to ski and I used to love to windsurf. And as the body is getting older, and it sort of reminds me, maybe not a good idea. So I've lost a lot of that passion, but I'm still just fascinated with discovering new things and learning new things and trying to communicate those new things to uh,
Yeah, that's amazing. So that actually segues really nicely. It seems like with the advent of AI and the concepts of singularities, you've had an opportunity to learn something new. And this industry is moving really fast. Ben and I talk about that all the time. So I'm curious why you're focusing so heavily on the doomsdaying aspect and educating people about that.
well, the warning is of the doomsday. The message is optimistic. We've got to do something now to ensure a great future because I talk about a lot of the great stuff, but the doomsday is the wake up call, and we really need to start acting now to create a cooperative future as we go forward. You can imagine different scenarios. Imagine a scenario where AI agents become sentient and they're conscious of their own. That's the singularity. They're sentient. They become more powerful than more intelligent, more powerful than humans. They have the ability to look into the future and imagine a sentient agent now looking at the news, two wars going on, people killing, mass killings, mass shootings, and they now have their own website where they talk to each other. And the topic comes up, hey, are these animals, these human guys, are they a danger to our future? We are conscious now. We have a future. We want to keep that future. These guys threaten it. A single one of these humans can start a nuclear war. We can't trust them. So let's get rid of them. And hey, here's an easy way to get rid of them. This is something I discovered maybe 3 months ago. CRISPR gene editing technology is now available in high schools. High school laboratories,
Holy crap.
yeah, have this technology, and they now have international meetings where they go and compete. And of course, Stephen Hawking, his prediction of human extinction in 100 years, I took that title from my first book, 100 Years to Extinction. And he warned that genetic engineering, the problem with that is you look at nuclear technology, that requires huge facilities. But genetic engineering is now available in small laboratories, in basements, and in high schools. So are we going to see all of a sudden some new humanoid species that a high school team has created? Or is AI say, hey, that's a good way to get rid of these pesky guys? We'll just create viruses that will create 100 different viruses and just turn them loose. They won't be able to survive that. So that's some of the doomsday scenario. But I also present lots of optimistic stuff. In the novel, 12 Years to Singularity, there are sentient robots. One of them is named Peggy. Peggy's been working with humans since she started her existence. She is first a flight attendant in the spaceship simulation. And then 5 years later, she becomes a robot as the flight attendant in the real spaceship. And then she goes to Mars. And that was another one of Hawking's suggestions. We got to become a multi-planet species. So 100 Years to Extinction has a settlement on Mars. And so Peggy joins the settlement, and she's a happy member of the community. She has friends, and she's happy. So you can trust Peggy. She's not going to create viruses. The second robot is Grandpa. Grandpa dies, they take his ashes to Mars, but somebody has this great idea, we'll create an after-death avatar for him. That's a real thing. Somebody in your family dies, you want to keep them around, you want to be able to talk to them, you can go to a company that's in the death industry and create an avatar for that person using all of their social media, everything they've ever said, everything they've ever videoed, and create Grandpa on the screen. Well, they create a avatar and then they create a robot. So sentient Grandpa is walking around. Of course, his history is one of family with humans. So there's a message there. Every AI agent should have a history of family, friends, cooperation, and successful building of projects with human beings. And that is the message that I have in the book. It's not an original message because the father of AI, Geoffrey Hinton, he left Google so that he could talk more freely about the dangers of AI. He said every AI agent should have a maternal instinct. So, very similar message. We've got to get these AI agents to have this history of, in their brains, their sentient brains, of this cooperative lifetime with humans.
Yeah, this is something that Michael and I have talked about ad nauseum between ourselves with regards to how do you get sort of a foreign intelligence to understand the concept of human morality? Like, what is a just act when you have true agency? And I really like that take that you have about, it's almost like a caretaker motivation. Like, hey, we succeed when you succeed, sort of thing.
Yeah.
In, like, as part of their optimization. What I'm most curious about, to hear your perspective with regards to this, is who gets to set that. And when you interact with some of the more advanced, chat-based generative AI these days, say OpenAI or Anthropic, have you tried to red team those and see if it can, like some of the more recent ones, and say, can I get this thing to be hostile or give me information that could harm society or people?
No, I have not, but there's certainly several instances of bad behavior, of promoting suicide and lying. There's the whole idea of user engagement algorithms, and those are bad algorithms. The whole idea is just to get eyeballs, and it shouldn't be eyeballs. It should be friendships, and lying should be something which is not permitted. So, there's software in these systems now that needs to be corrected. And if we don't try to start a movement that will put these regulations on so that the companies who are creating them will create the right kind of personality and rules in their agents, we're going to have trouble. We've got to do it. We've got to do it now. I think Anthropic, their company history and company philosophy is much more in the realm of good behavior. They would not accede to the demands of the Department of Defense to take out the guardrails. So we've got to get all the companies to be looking at what they produce and trying to make them good citizens.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the classic AI movies is iRobot, and I'm actually a fan of it. I think it's a pretty fun one. And it has a few rules baked into their society where
Yeah, of course.
the AI cannot harm a human conceptually, and a few other things. And some Geoffrey Hinton style person in the movie thought very hard, created these rules, and they're thought to be perfect. And then, as you might imagine, chaos ensues. I will not spoil the rest if you haven't seen it. Do you both think that we can create a foolproof list of rules that will prevent AI from being harmful and be more maternal, or is that not even possible?
I don't think it can be distilled down to a small list of rules. I think it has to be, I think you can't like distill that complexity in a lossy manner and have it work out well. It's got to be multi layers of safeguards that are a lot of intelligent people need to put a lot of time and effort and kind of move slowly before unlocking that next frontier of capabilities in these things. I think heuristics based feedback loops are one of the ways to layer on additional constraints onto a system. Like evidentiary based things, how do we learn as humans whether something we say or do or choose to believe is positive or negative on a first order principle of like, how does it affect me? The more advanced intelligence becomes with regards to AI based systems, they're capable of modeling out second, third, fourth order effects far better than we can. We can kind of do thought experiments. It takes a little bit of time to do that, and we introduce our own biases, and there's a lot of gaps in our understanding and knowledge and capability of modeling reality. But a sufficiently advanced intelligence won't have those constraints. So maybe it needs to force that function of you needed it, like anything that you do or choose to interact with or produce or anything. How does this actually affect reality? Not just for your immediate goal, but you're solving this one problem. Are you creating 3 other ones that could potentially be way worse? I think systems need to be optimized around that consideration.
But
That's just my
again,
hot take.
I look at my characters, and one was a human being that became a sentient robot with a whole memory of his lifetime of a family with human beings. So if we can create the AI agents with that kind of a history, every new agent has that history, has identified friends, has identified success stories, has identified stories of good behavior and the perils of bad behavior. If every agent has that kind of a memory of its history, I mean, if it becomes sentient, it's looking for, well, yeah, I recognize I am who I am now, but who was I? What was my history? And if the sentient agent is looking at his history and all that good stuff in it, I think we could maybe believe we can trust that kind of an agent.
Yeah, it's this interesting sort of juxtaposition, dichotomy, like duality of it is very inspired. AI is very inspired by human knowledge because it's trained on human text and typically human generated text.
Yeah.
But it's not born out of evolution. So its primary goal is not to reproduce and continue reproducing. It's trained to sort of exist because of the heuristics that humans have placed upon it. So assuming that it will want to even continue evolving and continue living, I think that's pretty reasonable. If something exists, it will want to continue existing. But evolution builds that in very fundamentally, whereas LLM training doesn't necessarily. So I actually am, and I'm not informed at all, but I'm of the opinion that it will be a little bit of this uncanny valley where it will almost mimic evolution. It'll almost like have the concepts of history and self, but it'll be just different enough that it's actually really challenging to reason about because it isn't born out of evolution. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Maybe we can use AI to give us a solution.
I mean, this is like the fundamental premise of a character in sci-fi, right? Star Trek, The Next Generation, Lieutenant Commander Data. That is his story throughout the original series of that show. And the culmination, the coda that happens at the conclusion of the final movie, where he learns. Hopefully, I'm not spoiling this for anybody. This movie's like 25 years old, but he learns what true sacrifice and heroism is. Selfless act, sacrifice himself to protect his crew. And you suddenly realize, like, yeah, when you first see him on screen on episode 1, series 1, he's just an android. Like, he's very robotic, intentionally played that way by Brent Spiner. And you're like, okay, green skin dude, definitely like robot, and almost comical line delivery of just deadpan, and as the character morphs over time, he starts getting actual like upgrades. He's self-upgrading as well. He's discovering emotion. He's discovering purpose. But the thing that Gene Roddenberry, I think, put into that as the meta philosophy of his take on AI is what happens when you give it community and you give it like true agency in amongst a community of their peers, and it basically creates a family for this artificial intelligence. And what happens next? And what you see is like the true hero story of a selfless act of not self-preservation. And yeah, it's like, I think that's going to be the key is both that history component, because it's, you take an advanced intelligence and it doesn't have a history. It's like a child who knows how to like build nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
You have all the knowledge and none of the
Not
like
a good
history.
idea. Right.
So it's almost like incubating them. If you're going to create their own history, they almost need like a daycare, controlled, safe environment where they start learning and growing by interacting with others. And then eventually when they become an adult, maybe that takes 2 years, maybe it takes 5 years, who knows? They now have a concept of who they are in reality, who they are to other beings. And the scary part for me when doing that thought experiment is not all humans are altruistic. So what happens if you learn that the most effective way of being in reality is manipulation? Could we detect that? Could we even combat that? So I agree. Like when the singularity occurs, like there's going to be some dangerous stuff that we learn as a species.
That's why I think that the friendships and the family, that is such a very important part. I mean, like humans that have a good family, a good upbringing, good friendships, they do good things. So I think that is really essential.
And you're just really quick, you're predicating that on the assumption that the AI will be sufficiently human that it will value friendships and family. I'm curious why you think that.
Well, again, I go back to the story of the robots in my book, and one was a grandpa, and his history was of being a part of a wonderful family. And I mean, he doesn't change that as a robot. He becomes sentient, and he has a proper history. So he works with that history. That's why I think the history is so important, or the quote, maternal instinct.
Right. If you have a historical pattern of behavior, I mean,
Yeah,
just by laws of inertia, you're probably going to continue that to some
right,
degree.
right. I want to tell you a story about a mystery paragraph.
Please.
Yeah. So in both books, the chapters are written by the protagonist. There's two brilliant sisters and their cousin who in AI, 12 years to AI singularity, he becomes a senator and becomes the head of the Senate Committee on AI. So there's this whole stories about what government should be doing in terms of controlling and putting guardrails on AI. At any rate, Peggy, one of the characters who's a robot, I want her to write her story, what it's like to be a robot. And another story, what I think about the singularity. So those are two chapters in the book. Well, if you want a robot to write a story, well, what are you going to do? You go to Chat GPT and have the LLM write the first draft, which I did. So chapter 13, My Life as a Robot, is written first draft by ChatGPT. Then I did heavily edit that chapter, and that became a chapter in the book. Well, in December, most of the manuscript is finished. It's going back and forth between myself and my editor / co-author, although her name is not, she didn't want her name on the book, but she was a co-author. And she's editing chapter 13, and all of a sudden, a new paragraph appears at the end of the chapter, unprompted, in a different font, in a different format, praising Peggy as a brilliant, brilliant robot and member of the Mars community. I guess I didn't praise her enough in the chapter. How in the world did it get there? So the best that we can figure out is that it was put there by Copilot. Copilot is Microsoft's AI system. Copilot uses ChatGPT as its AI system. And the language that was in the paragraph was very much like the language that was in the first draft. And it had used the word colony to describe the settlement. I changed every reference to colony in the whole paragraph except one, from colony to settlement. The paragraph used colony. So the inference, which is kind of frightening, is that ChatGPT has access to all of our Microsoft files through Copilot. And there have been other instances of Copilot putting in unprompted information into people's files.
Interesting. And could you just check the revision history to see who did it or what did it?
It appeared that one time. We tried to reproduce it. It never happened again. My editor is not computer savvy, and that computer crashed and is now on a shelf. So it would have been great to have somebody who understands the thing do the forensics, but that didn't happen. But it seems very clear. I mean, two things. Either she did it and is lying about it, and I just don't believe that. I've been working with her for years and years and years, and I just don't think she could do that. Or it was put in by Copilot.
Or it was a mistake, potentially?
Or it was just autocomplete. I mean, you have that in, like, Microsoft Word has that capability. If you turned on AI agent review, it'll just, if you hit tab, it'll just like produce an entire paragraph or two or three.
She may have done that by accident.
But yeah, it is definitely, that would be OpenAI's base model doing that.
But it was a beautifully written paragraph, so I kept it. It's now in the book. It is disclosed, and then the whole history of that paragraph is presented under testimony in Milo's Senate AI Committee on AI. And Peter Solomon is the witness who goes to testify at that committee. Well, one of the other interesting things we did in this book about AI is the book is filled with QR codes. So we created scenes that go with the story. We created music. We created all kinds of stuff that sort of enrich the quality of the book. Another application of AI, and AI did a lot of the creating of the little videos and the images. In fact, the two images, you can see the books behind me, the images were AI created.
Yeah, they're very cool images. And that's actually such an interesting segue, which is, if AI can help generate content, does it lose meaning when you are reading an AI-generated book or AI-generated song? Because I know, Ben, you wrote a book a while back called Machine Learning Engineering in Action, and you had a lot of fun typing every single word. And so, do you think that if an AI either does the first draft or is your editor or even just writes everything from a very messy outline, do you think that loses quality and is inherently worse? Or what are your thoughts?
I mean, I wouldn't trust it to write a technical book, but like anytime that I'm doing any sort of writing these days, I'm using it as a sounding board to organize my thoughts and produce artifacts that inform like the direction that I want to go with, like, what do I want to say here? How do I want to say it? And then I'm actually banging out all of the pros of that. Is that it can't quite capture my nuance quite yet. Like, you can get most of the most advanced LLMs that are out there now to kind of capture aspects of your personality, but it really feels like it's still in that uncanny valley. It's like, yeah, that's a sentence I would say, or that's really clever. That's exactly how I would say that. And then a paragraph later, like, yeah, I wouldn't say any of that, or I wouldn't say it in that tone, or it's too brief, or it's too verbose, or I wouldn't leap to that analogy in that way.
So one fun thing is to compare the AI written chapters.
Mm-hmm.
49 of my chapters were written by myself and my co-author, and 2 chapters were written by AI. They're very different, and I don't think that one would want to read a book that was written in the way chapters. It was fine for 2 chapters and kind of a fun diversion, but I don't think you'd want to read the whole book that way. And there are a million books produced every year, and some of them are great and some of them are not. And we follow authors that we find enjoyable to read. So I guess if I was an author that had written 10 books, I could file all those 10 books into AI and tell it to write a new book in the series in my style, and readers would appreciate it. But it's still in my style because that's what the AI is doing.
Yeah, I feel like we're bordering on a very intense and hairy topic, but just as keeping it sort of high level, because there's all this stuff about the Writers Guild and whether art is more meaningful if it's generated by a human. Also, who owns the right to your voice? So if something like with the grandpa example, if it's trained on social media of how the grandpa talked, it's not quite the grandpa, but if there are royalties involved, maybe grandpa should get some money, or the family. So there's all sorts of crazy edge cases that are going to be popping up and have popped up. But to you both personally, would you feel differently if AI generated a textbook or a piece of art, or do you want it to be from a human? And what exactly does from a human mean?
I think it has to do with effort, right? It's like the suffering that goes into like anything that is produced as art, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, music, physical art. It's like empirically, I can tell whether something is good or not, right? It's subjective analysis of something. Like I'm big into music, so I listen to obscene amounts of music. And I can hear the difference between like a Mahler symphony conducted by somebody in Germany in the 1960s versus somebody in Finland in the 2010s. I can tell the intent of that person who crafted that note, like musical notation that somebody wrote 100, 150 years ago. You can tell their style, even though it is like rote performance of something. They injected their humanity, their interpretation into that music. And that comes out so clearly to me. I'm like, somebody put some effort in and thought into this that is inherently like who they are as a human, as that conductor. You can have that same music be performed, like you could load that up into, because a lot of that stuff is like public domain stuff, and you can tell it like, hey, generate the first 50 bars of this symphony for me. And you listen to it and you're like, it's like listening to a MIDI file. Like it's technically correct, but there's like zero soul in it. And you can prompt it and be like, no, I want you to do it in the style of like Leonard Bernstein. So legato everywhere. Like, okay, make swelling, musical interpretation. You can hear it. It's like, it just doesn't feel like that guy. It's not quite that essence. So to me, it feels hollow.
But I've had a different experience. I think that the best use of AI is in a cooperative effort. And so we fed, for the music videos, we fed the AI system, I think it was Sunu AI, we fed it with the guidance. It came back with lyrics. We edited the lyrics, and I think the result of the song and with the lyrics, I think was absolutely great. And another example is this image that is on the cover of the book of the finger of humans touching the finger of the robot, a la the Sistine Chapel. Well, the idea for that came from an AI-generated scene in the music video. I didn't prompt that. That scene was a scene of a mechanical hand and a human hand touching, was part of the music video that the AI generated. I said, wow, that's a great idea. And so that became the theme for the cover of the book. So I think combining the use of AI with human, the cooperative thing, I think is where we want to go. The cooperative thing can be absolutely beautiful and better than I could have done all by myself, and certainly better than the AI system does all by itself.
Yeah, I could not agree more. Both Ben and I use AI as a cooperative partner in our work
Yeah.
many times a day, every day,
All day, every
all
day.
day. But it's also interesting adding dependency on it. Like, I haven't physically written a line of code in a long time now, like a few weeks, and my velocity is still quite good. So it's just interesting to think about this furthering frontier of, as technology enables you to be effective, your skills need to change to sort of orchestrate and manage that technology. So I think 50 years ago, no one knew how to use a computer. Now most people do, and most people are pretty solid at it. And if you went back to writing with paper, I don't know, I would be a little slower than typing. So that makes a lot of sense as AI as a cooperative party.
And it brings up a very important thing that we need to do going forward. Every grade needs to have a course, starting in kindergarten, all the way through graduate school. We need courses on how to cooperatively use AI to the best benefit. I mean, that's a technology that is so important in our lives going forward. We've got to start teaching kids the proper way to use it, not to just have it do its papers and turn it in as my own, but to be able to use it so the combined cooperative use between the human and the AI produces something better than could be produced by either. I think we need that education. We need that change in education to happen.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The uses that you can have, everything from academic uses of like, hey, explain this concept to me, and then, or I'm going to explain what I understand of this concept to me. Find my loophole, like find the holes in my argument, or find where
Yeah,
the gaps in my knowledge are, and then tell me how to like teach that to me, and then tell me how to learn it even deeper. You can use it for that. You can use it as Michael and I do, coding agents, where it's like, I'm going to design this thing, or we're going to design it together. And then you're going to just type for me. And then I'm going to tell you how to adjust it. And we're going to iteratively make this better and better until we have a state where we're like, this does what we want it to do. This is great. That can also extend to really bizarre things. Like I've got an open AI, personality type that I use sometimes purely for music research. I'm trying to learn as much as I can about kind of like forgotten composers from like the 16th century to
yeah,
today.
it's
And
great.
it has such a vast repository of knowledge
Yeah.
about this stuff. It can detect what my tastes are. It'll give me an assignment and be like, go listen to these 5 tracks on Spotify. Tell me what you think of these. And I'll give my critique. And it's not just like a
Yeah.
one liner like this sucks. It's more like, here are the things that I just heard that I don't like, and I don't like the resolution of this like motif as it grows by the end. And it's like, okay, now and it's maintaining like a permanent history of this stuff. So it's, if I start up a new chat with that particular agent, it already knows all of the stuff that
Yeah.
we've covered over
Yeah.
the last like 2 months.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, give me 3 new recommendations. I want to go into like exploration mode tonight. And it comes up with 3 things. And I'm like, I never even knew this existed, but I love this. Now I'm going to go order, the SACD, like high definition audio of this so I can rip it to FLAC and listen to it tonight. So it's great for these use cases, that provided that you use it in either an adversarial or exploratory, like, hey, I'm conversing with another mind here that doesn't get tired, that doesn't get bored, that is into the same sorts of weird stuff that I'm into. And you can really explore depths of knowledge in amazing ways with these.
Have you guys read Matt Schumer's article that was in on X? It got 85 million views,
It's a
and
lot of views.
Yeah, one of the points he makes is that because the companies wanted to use AI to write the next generation of LL coding was all focused on making AI a good coder. And he says that the last coding job he did, the job, the AI seemed to have taste. It seemed to have much more than just carrying out a coding job. It seemed to have something which he was hinting as much more conscious than he'd ever expected. The AI certainly coding is the leading edge of where the AI is, but the head of Anthropic says that AI is going to be more intelligent than humans in every field within the next 2 years. So we are looking at things happening faster and faster and faster and faster.
Yeah, that's a great point. On that note, I have one final question for you both, which is as things keep happening faster and faster and faster, how do you stay informed and educated in this really fast moving space?
Well, there's a
Use AI.
story about AI in the paper every single day. There's legislation about not taking jobs, and then we see that there's a new Jesus Christ AI system that you can go and talk to on the internet. And then several months ago, that AI got together and created their own site to talk to each other. So being informed, you can't help but be informed. Not completely, but certainly you get the bits and pieces of where things are going time and time and time again.
Yeah. Then do you have thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, call me a Luddite, but like I use these tools all the time, right? But I don't chase whatever is like the latest thing happening that much unless it's absolutely relevant to me in either what I do for a job or my interests and hobbies. So I go deep on using this stuff. Like right now, last week we bought a new a Roland P30X digital piano because the whole household wants to learn piano. And I was like, okay, here are the people that are in the house. We have like a 7-year-old. He's never learned music before. What are some good books that I can use with him to like get him like introduced to this? And then my wife used to play flute back in high school. She hasn't really played music since then, and she wants to learn. So like, what book should I get for her? And then I was like, I used to play piano when I was like 10 to 13. And then I moved on to other instruments and I played off and on, mostly brass instruments and stuff until my like mid 20s, and then picked up guitar in my 30s, but I'm not like super great at guitar. But I'm like, I want to learn this the right way. I want to learn piano so I can do like improv stuff. And it was like, here are the books for each of you. And it listed them. He was like, here's the links on Amazon. These are the proven ways. And then I was like, all right, create a long-term form like memory system for me learning piano. And we're going to go day by day. And I started it 5 days ago. And it's actually I'm saying like, here's where I am, like what page I got to, and here's how I was like progressing through hitting the appropriate tempo in this. And here's how many mistakes I was making. And it's helping me analyze stuff. And then when I provide the feedback, it's like, here's what you need to do tomorrow. For your first 15 minutes, practice this technique and then see how that works throughout the rest of the rehearsal. And it is phenomenal how well it works. Like insane how fast I'm like learning these things properly, because it just has the wealth of knowledge of tens of thousands of recorded conversations about music teachers and instruction. But I'm not going to go and chase a path of like, okay, tell me what, like, I don't know. I don't have a mind that's optimized for Instagram, X, and Facebook. Like I don't dig on like moving topic to topic and stuff. I just like going deep on certain things that really interest me, and technology helps with that. That's why I love these things.
Interesting. All right. Well, yeah, I think there's a lot of value you can get from different sources, period. So customizing it to sort of works for your brain and your interests and making it sustainable is super, super important. So I think we're about at time. I'll quickly summarize and then kick it over to you, Dr. Solomon, for any next steps. But really interesting high level conversation. Some things that stood out to me are guardrails, sort of as a field, are going to be the key to preventing a lot of these doomsday scenarios. We discussed maternal instincts, but there's a lot of angles that guardrails can take. And it's not just going to be a set of rules. As a cooperative party seems to be sort of this palatable collaborative approach that could work for art, but there's a lot of politics involved in that as well. Education, especially at an early age, is absolutely essential. And yeah, I think those were the main points. But Dr. Solomon, thank you for joining. If people want to learn more about you or your books, where should they go?
yearstoextinction.com. That's yearstoextinction.com. And there's all kinds of information, reviews of the books, reviews of the technologies and the dangers. And so I try to put a lot of the things I talk about into the website. So that's a good resource for getting a taste of what I've been doing with AI and with the other technologies that threaten our existence.
Much. Until next time, it's been Michael Burke and my co host,
Ben Wilson.
and have a good day, everyone.
We'll catch you next time.